Hello friends, in this video we are going to talk about the various types of bariatric surgery. This is a very important topic for the postgraduate exams and also for clinical practice nowadays because with the increasing incidence of obesity in the 21st century, there are various bariatric surgeries developed to not only for weight reduction but also for correction of other metabolic syndrome like diabetes, dyslipidemia, hypertension and so on. So we are going to look at the different types of bariatric surgery now. Types of bariatric surgery are broadly classified into two. One is restrictive type and the other is malabsorptive type. The restrictive type is mainly based on the principle of creating early satiety and thereby reducing the appetite and thus weight reduction. Whereas the malabsorptive type is mainly based on the principle of bypassing some length of the intestine so that there is non-absorption of the nutrients and thereby weight reduction. So both have different mechanisms, though there might be some procedures which have overlapping of both restrictive and malabsorptive types. We are going to see in a while. Let us see few types of restrictive surgeries. Number one, it is gastric banding. It is mainly done laparoscopically and it is known as lap adjustable gastric banding. The second one is sleeve gastrectomy. We are going to see each of them in detail. The third one is Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Though Roux-en-Y gastric bypass we are keeping in the restrictive type, it has some malabsorptive function as well. In the malabsorptive, the main types that we are going to study in detail are biliopancreatic diversion, that is BPD, and simultaneously there is another which is a modification of BPD, that is BPD with duodenal switch. We are going to see them individually. So these are the broadly the different types of bariatric surgery. Apart from this, there are some latest advances. We are going to deal with them individually at the end. Let us first look at the lap adjustable gastric banding or the pars flaccida technique. What we do in the pars flaccida technique is, this is the stomach. What we do is, we insert a band just below the gastroesophageal junction. We insert a band here which can be adjustable depending on the amount of the fluid which is inserted through this injection port. This is the injection port and this injection port is placed subcutaneously. So this is the lap adjustable gastric band which is placed just below the gastroesophageal junction to create a small pouch of stomach. This is a small pouch of stomach and volume is around 30 ml. This is the functional gastric pouch. So what happens is this reduces the hunger, this causes early satiety and thereby acts in a restrictive manner to cause weight reduction. This band is usually made up of silicone. And what we see, the main advantage of this technique is that this is a reversible technique. Therefore, it is one of the safest technique. But the problem is the patient requires regular follow-up and needs to be motivated to make this procedure successful. That's the limitation of this procedure. Now let us see the other procedure. Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. As we said that this is a combination of malabsorptive as well as restrictive. Mainly it's a restrictive procedure, but it can cause malabsorption as well. Let us see the steps of Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. This is the stomach, duodenum and the small intestine. So what we do in the first step, we create a small gastric pouch which is based on the lesser curvature. And what is left behind is the remaining part of the stomach and the small intestine. Now what we do next, we make a Roux-en-Y jejunostomy, and for that we make an incision in the jejunum with an idea to create the length of the roux limb about 100 centimeter. So what do we do? Suppose we make an incision here and we color the distal part of the jejunum by red. This is the roux limb that we are going to color as red. So whatever we are going to see as red is the distal part of the jejunum. So what we see next is, this is the gastric pouch based on the lesser curvature. What has been done now is the roux limb has been anastomosed here. And what is left behind is the distal part of the stomach. And we have this anastomosis of the proximal part of the jejunum with the roux limb. So in such a way that the length of this limb is around 100 centimeter. This limb is known as the alimentary limb. And this limb in black is known as the biliopancreatic limb because it carries all the secretions to the intestine. So since this segment of the biliopancreatic limb has been bypassed during absorption, therefore this is also a malabsorptive procedure. So this is about the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Now, what are the problems in this? Under the roux limb, there can be hernia, and that hernia has been given the name called Peterson hernia. Apart from this, there can be complications like deep vein thrombosis. There can be complications of anastomotic failure. These are the main things about Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Let us look into the next one, that is sleeve gastrectomy. So what we do in sleeve gastrectomy is, this is the stomach. We create a lesser curvature based gastric tube, and this greater curvature based gastric tube is resected. We do this by linear stapling from the fundus to the angle of His. This is the resected part, and the lesser curvature based tube is the gastric tube which is left behind. This is similar to the previous procedure, which was Magenstress and Mill operation. In the Magenstress and Mill operation, what was done was that this greater curvature based tube was left in continuity. It was not resected away from the stomach. The problem with the sleeve gastrectomy is, this is the angle of the His. So what happens is, at the level of the angle of the His, since this is a high pressure system, there is chance of anastomotic leak, and this is known as the Achilles heel of this procedure. So that's about the sleeve gastrectomy. Let us move ahead and see the malabsorptive types. The first malabsorptive type that we are going to see is biliopancreatic diversion. Let us see the stepwise approach to biliopancreatic diversion. What do we do in this? This is the stomach, the duodenum, the small intestine. This is the jejunum, and we draw the remaining ileum in red. Right. So what do we do next is, first step that we do in a biliopancreatic diversion is distal gastrectomy. So what will be left behind will be like this. Distal part of the stomach has been removed. And so what will be left behind will be the duodenal limb along with the jejunum, remaining part of the small intestine, that is ileum. And then this is the large gut. This is the remaining part after the first step. So the first step being distal gastrectomy. So we have done the distal gastrectomy. What we do the next is we dissect at the level of jejuno-ileal junction to do the next step, that is the Roux-en-Y limb formation. And how do we do that? In the next step, this was the distal part of the stomach, this was the proximal part of the stomach, and because anastomosis of that ileal loom was anastomosed here, it was an end to side anastomosis, and then the remaining part of the biliary limb is made continuous with the ileal limb by a jejuno-ileal anastomosis. So what do we do next? Next we do the second step, the first step being distal gastrectomy. The second step is gastro-ileal anastomosis. The third step is jejuno-ileal anastomosis. And this leads to formation of a common channel. We draw the common channel in a blue color, and after the common channel will drain into large gut. Now what happens, there are a few things to remember in this is, what is the length of this limb? First of all, this limb is called the alimentary limb. The length of the alimentary limb is kept around 2 meters. Unlike in Roux-en-Y gastric bypass where it was 1 meter. The length of this common channel is kept around 0.5 meters. So this is one procedure which causes bypass of a significant portion of the small gut, and because of that it also causes a lot of fat malabsorption and steatorrhea. So this is one procedure that causes maximum weight loss and maximum malabsorption, and thereby also causing maximum fat malabsorption. So there has been some revision in this procedure. Apart from this, another complication in this procedure can be that this part of this gastro-ileal anastomosis might come in contact with the acid directly, and so there might be chance of formation of ulcer around this anastomosis. So this might lead to anastomotic ulcer. So few things about the biliopancreatic diversion. This causes maximum weight loss. This causes maximum fat malabsorption, and it might lead to anastomotic ulcer. After we have done this jejuno-ileal anastomosis and we have created the common channel and we have completed this anastomosis, make sure at the end of the procedure we do an appendicectomy. We remove the appendix and we remove the gallbladder. So the step 4 and 5 we should remember to remove the appendix and to remove the gallbladder to do a cholecystectomy. The next is a modification of biliopancreatic diversion, that is duodenal switch. Let us look into duodenal switch. What we do in duodenal switch is, this is the stomach, this is the proximal part of the small intestine. We depict the ileum in red and the large bowel in brown. So what we do, the first step in the duodenal switch operation is we do a sleeve gastrectomy. This is the part of the stomach that we remove. The remaining part of the stomach is left behind. This part is removed. This is the sleeve gastrectomy. The next step that we do after sleeve gastrectomy is we do resection of the duodeno-gastric junction. We dissect at the junction of the first and the second part of the duodenum. This is the second step. We resect at this level, and another resection we do at the jejuno-ileal junction. So there are two resections we do, and what is left behind is, this is the part of the biliary limb that is left behind in black after resection, and what is left behind in red is the part of the small intestine which is left behind, that is ileum. So what we do now is, so after we have got resection at the junction of the first and the second part of the duodenum, and we have resected the jejuno-ileal junction, what we do next is we do anastomosis. So the first anastomosis that is done is, this is the first part of the duodenum. We do anastomosis of the first part of the duodenum with the ileum. So this is the anastomosis between the first part of the duodenum and the ileum. So this is the duodeno-ileal anastomosis. All right. The next is we do anastomosis of this duodenal limb with the jejunum, form a common limb, and this anastomosis is jejuno-ileal anastomosis. And then we form a common limb here, which goes into the large bowel. What we have to understand here is, how is it different from the typical biliopancreatic diversion? Number one, the length of this alimentary limb here is 1.5 meter, like 2 meters in the BPT, and the length of the common limb here is 1 meter. So there is less malabsorption compared to the biliopancreatic diversion, and so there is less fat malabsorption and less steatorrhea. But not only that, it also prevents the formation of ulcers because of the direct gastroileal anastomosis. There was formation of ulcers, so that is prevented here in this duodenal switch operation. Apart from that, we also do cholecystectomy and appendicectomy in this procedure too. So this was the duodenal switch operation. Now we will look into some recently developed techniques of bariatric surgery. One of them is a mini gastric bypass. Now what is this mini gastric bypass and how is it different from the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass? In a mini gastric bypass, what we do is, the first step is we do a vertical sleeve gastrectomy and the lesser curvature based gastric tube is created. The next is, it's basically based on a single anastomosis. Instead of a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, which is based on multiple anastomosis, a mini gastric bypass is based on a single anastomosis, and the next anastomosis is a Billrod 2 gastrojejunostomy. So what is done next is, this sleeve of the stomach, this is the duodenum. We bring a loop of jejunum and we cause anastomosis of the jejunum with this part of the stomach. So there is a single anastomosis, that is a Billrod 2 gastrojejunostomy. So the advantage of mini gastric bypass being, there are less chances of anastomotic leak and it is easy to create. Second, since it is easy to create, therefore it is easily reversible as well compared to a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. But what is important to note here is, this length of this biliopancreatic limb in this is around 200 centimeter, that is around 2 meter. And since the length of this biliopancreatic limb is very large, therefore what happens is there is more chance of anemia and more chance of diarrhea in the mini gastric bypass compared to the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Next, we move on to the other advances in the bariatric surgery. Now, there are a few endoscopic procedures which have been developed for these bariatric surgeries. Now, these endoscopic procedures are again classified into restrictive and malabsorptive. The restrictive procedures include, number one, Endo-Cinch procedure. Number two, TOGA, is transoral gastroplasty. And number three is POSE, that is primary obesity surgery endoluminal. And number fourth is bioenteric intragastric balloon. We are going to see each of them independently. And the malabsorptive type includes the endobarrier gastrointestinal liner. So these are the various endoscopic procedures for bariatric surgery, restrictive and malabsorptive. Let us look into a few of them. The Endo-Cinch procedure is, this was traditionally used for GERD. What is done in this procedure is, multiple sutures are placed inside the stomach and the gastric wall is converted into pleats and multiple sutures are placed endoscopically and thus they reduce the intragastric volume. So the gastric volume is decreased because multiple pleats are taken and they are sutured in such a way that the gastric volume is decreased. And that's how this acts as a restrictive procedure, as we can see in the image. Next is transoral gastroplasty. Now, what is done in transoral gastroplasty is, endoscopically we introduce a metallic device inside the stomach, and with the help of this device, staplers are placed and a gastric pouch is created along the lesser curvature. Basically, depending on this endoscopic procedure, we're creating a stippled pouch around the lesser curvature, as we can see in the image given. The next one is the pose, that is primary obesity surgery endoluminal. This is a traditional procedure which is again based on reduction of the size of the gastric cavity by using staplers, and in this method we call stapling at the level of the greater curvature. Multiple folds are created, as we can see in the image. Next is the intragastric balloon. As we can understand from the term itself, that in the intragastric balloon we insert some space occupying balloon inside the stomach, and if we insert this balloon, this will decrease the volume of the stomach, and thus this acts as a restrictive procedure. Let us move on to the next one, that is the endobarrier. It is a malabsorptive procedure. Here what is done is a metal sleeve made up of nickel and titanium. It is inserted endoscopically from the duodenum up to the proximal part of the jejunum. So those part of the jejunum and the duodenum don't come in contact with the bolus of the fluid, and so there is no absorption from there. Thus it acts as a malabsorptive procedure. It is inserted in the duodenum and the proximal part of the jejunum, and so there is no absorption in this part, and it leads to malabsorptive procedure. These are the various procedures for bariatric surgery that we have to know for exam purpose as well as for practical purpose. So first we discussed about the traditional methods of restrictive and malabsorptive. Then we spoke about the endoluminal methods. All these are important for the exam purpose. Stay tuned to this channel for more videos. Thank you for watching this video.